All right, Charlie. I'm going to ask later on, I guess, was this the plan all along? Not that they were lying, saying they wanted to play the competitive games, but it does seem, hey, if goaltending fell apart last year and we think maybe that was a big part of the problem, maybe address it. And they did the opposite. But let me talk about the skaters right now, because the skaters, particularly the quote unquote young core of forwards.
Yeah, I want to talk about this young core.
Are the guys
and there are specific guys we're going to talk about. It's a major problem.
Are the guys who aren't coming through, like right now, the only players that I can say are at least as good as they were last year. I guess we can throw Cam York in there, but he's hurt, so in my mind, he doesn't exist. Object permanence, etc. Sanheim and Konechny, prime age players already signed to long-term contracts. Guys, we know who they are, and they're playing the way we expect them to. They have been what they should be. But then we get to Owen Tippett, 2 goals, 8 points. Joel Farabee, 2 goals, 6 points. Morgan Frost, 1 goal last night, and he really didn't want to score it, 6 points. Bobby Brink, 2 goals, 5 points. Tyson Forster, 2 goals, 3 points. Jamie Drysdale, 1 goal, 3 points. Noah Cates, no goals, 1 point. Take it away. Who do you want to start with?
I feel like, Jason Kelce here. Like
it's the whole effing team.
But the thing is, it's not. And I think this is one of my real big concerns. Like, the goaltending, is it a concern? It's a concern in the here and now. I do believe it can be resolved over the long term. And if it ends up being the cause of one of the big causes of why this season goes badly, I don't think that necessarily means that it's going to stay the cause for the next 4 to 5 years. But you mentioned a few guys. You mentioned Konechny and Sanheim as guys who are living up to expectations. I'm actually going to expand the list because I think there are more. And I want to talk about the guys who I think are, because I think it zeroes in on a point. So Konechny and Sanheim, yes, Konechny is above a point per game. Maybe it's come in bunches, but you know what? He's doing what he's paid to do. Great game last night for Travis Konechny. Cool. Travis Sanheim, basically been good since the start. Cam York was good until he got hurt. Okay, Cam York is an exception because I'm going to get to him. I think overall, and I know people are gonna say this isn't true, but Sean Couturier is delivering about what I reasonably hope for from him. He's around that 3/4 of a point per game range. He's one of the team's best play drivers at 5-on-5. He's not the Sean Couturier from 2018 anymore. He's not. But he's still a perfectly acceptable, second line, middle six type center. He's fine. Okay. Michkov is a rookie. Okay. But 10 points in 13 games. You know what? Yeah, there's going to be growing pains, but I'm not going to criticize him too much. John Tortorella can do what he wants to do with him and, make his changes and bench him or whatever. That's fine. As someone who is looking at the long term, I'm not going to pin this on Michkov too much.
No.
But there's a couple other guys who I will say, like, if you're basing this on what are reasonable expectations for them, I think Ristolainen's been fine. I think Garnet Hathaway's been fine. I think Nick Seeler's been fine. I even think if you're just talking about points and overall play, Scott Lawton's been about what you expect him to be. You know what? Like, have any of them been great? Have any of them been, oh my God, they're amazing? No, but like, that's not who they are as players. They are middle to bottom of the lineup guys who are playing like perfectly acceptable middle to bottom of the lineup guys. Here's my concern, because you mentioned the young core. With the exception of Cam York and Matvei Michkov, and Michkov's obviously going through the early, button heads with Torts, which we knew was going to happen, whatever. That's a process. He's 19 years old. So really, with the exception of Cam York, all the guys I mentioned are veterans. They're all mature veterans. They are the kinds of guys who they've been through enough of this that they can probably shake off the day-to-day BS of hockey and not being happy and being frustrated and working through things. The veterans are mostly, I wouldn't say exceeding expectations, but they're mostly doing what you can reasonably expect them to do.
Agreed.
It's the young core, and I don't even want to call them a core. It's the young players that are dramatically falling short of expectations.
The group of guys.
And that's a concern on multiple levels. It's a concern, number one, because those were the guys that they needed to take steps forward for this team to be good this year. But on the bigger level, those are the guys that need to continue to take steps forward if this rebuild is going to work. And that's my big concern. Because, look, Scott Lawton being on a 32-point pace, like, cool. That's what he's getting paid to do. Yeah. Sure. But you know what? Like, Scott Lawton is not going to be part of this team 6 years down the road. He's not going to be part of the team that you're hoping is going to be a cup contender. I know you're doing, but seriously, like,
no, I agree.
At most, he's going to be a fourth liner who's getting 8-9 minutes a night to be a glue guy in the locker room, Dave Andreychuk style. Like, that's the most he's going to be. It's guys like Morgan Frost, like Owen Tippett, like Joel Farabee, Bobby Brink, Tyson Forrester, Jamie Drysdale. These are the guys that need over the next 2, 3, 4 years to continue to take steps forward. It's early. We're only 13 games in, but it's concerning that not only have none of those guys taken steps forward, they've basically, so far at least, and again, it's early, they look like they're regressing. That's a real concern.
No, and that's where my frustration comes in, because I referred to them as the young core, but really it's like outside of Cam York, who, he's the one like who's actually performed.
Yeah, he's like, the one who's exceeded or at least lived up to expectations.
These group of underperforming players, all around 25 or younger, they're the ones that we're picking and choosing. All right, some of you are going to make up the team we go forward with. Now, Michkov is in 100%. Tippett, he signed long-term. Hopefully this is just a bad year. It happens. It's not cool when it's happening, but plenty of guys have plenty of good goal scorers have a year where it's like, yeah, man, he had 13 goals, and the next year he had 40. Like, it just happens sometimes. He shot 2%. So maybe that's what's happening with Owen Tippett. Or perhaps last night was the beginning of a turnaround. But just looking at these...
All goal scorers are streaky, William.
Yeah, it happens. Like, when I ask, was this the plan, like, all along? Like, I don't think they necessarily came in tanking. But if the plan, again, was to be competitive all year, but then not address goaltending except for Ivan Fedotov, who we don't know if he can play the position at all in this league. Like, that seems a little iffy. But that's fine. Cool. Whatever. They need more talent, so if they suck, it makes the current season less interesting and less fun, like in the here and now. But big picture, it's probably a good thing. But the frustrating part is I can't point to one of these guys outside of Cam York who make up, hopefully, what this young core will be in the next few years, who looks like they're better than last season. It looks as if they have all either plateaued or taken a step back, or whatever happened. And let's say it was March last year when they really started to fall apart. Whatever happened in March and through the final month and a half of the season, it's continuing for them. They're the players that are going to be counted on to carry this thing at some point. And it simply is not happening. And that's very concerning, considering some of them are going to have to be here. Like, we can't trade 9 of these guys.
Yeah. I just worry, and again, this is in part because we just lived through it. I want to make it clear, I am not making the Vigneault Tortorella comparable, but we lived through the 2020 through 2022 run where basically every single guy in his early to mid-20s that you thought was going to be the next core all just fell off at the same time. And after watching that, I can't rule out the possibility that it could be happening again. And what we know is that when it happened the last time, when guys like Ivan Provorov and obviously Carter Hart, there was another situation, but even before that situation, he wasn't developing into the superstar goalie that a lot of people thought he was going to be in 2019, 2020.
Not Carey Price.
Yeah. Ivan Provorov, Travis Sanheim, Travis Konechny had that 2-year blip where you're like, what is he? Yeah. Phil Myers fell off a cliff. Nolan Patrick, there's injuries involved, but I don't know what he would have been even if the injuries don't hit. Like, that happened where you had all these guys in their early to mid-20s just didn't progress the way you wanted them to. And it's 13 games in. I am not ready to throw in the towel on any of these guys, really. But it's just because it happened so recently to the last group of early to mid-20s guys that when you see all of these guys struggling at the same time, you can't help but worry that it's happening again.
It is certainly a real concern, but you've laid out a few reasons why you think it might turn around for at least a few of them.
Yeah, like there are some guys where I have a pretty good handle on what I think their true talent levels are, and they're underperforming it so much that it strikes me as unlikely. Like, for example, I know you tossed that in there about Owen Tippett. Like, Owen Tippett is not a guy who I expect is going to score 13 goals over 82 games. Now, he's banked this cold stretch to start the year, and maybe he won't be able to catch up. Even if the rest of the year he produces at his normal level, that probably is only going to put him at 24, 25 goals over the year, and then that's a disappointing year for him, especially when you're hoping he's going to, he hasn't even hit 30 yet. You're hoping he develops and becomes a 40-goal scorer, and he hasn't even hit 30 yet. That's having a down year lowers the chances of that happening. But I do think he's going to score more. Noah Cates, I think, is one of the best two-way players on this team. He's shown it in multiple years. Thus far this season, he has the worst expected goals for percentage on the team at a little under 32%. Like, I don't think Noah Cates is going to score 50 points for this team anytime soon, but I'm pretty confident he ain't that bad at all the little things that he's always been good at. Tyson Forrester, after watching him all last year be dominant along the boards and make a lot of super smart plays, like, I don't think he's going to continue to hold a 40% expected goal rate of 5-on-5. I don't think that's him. So I do think there are some players that are just naturally going to improve because it's hard for me to envision a world where they're actually this bad. But then there's other guys like Morgan Frost, like Joel Farabee. Like, I hesitate to throw Drysdale there because I never thought he was going to put it together this year.
Yeah.
But like with Farabee, and interestingly enough, Tortorella's actually praised him over the last few games. I don't think he was going to praise anybody after last night's game, but he did praise Farabee after Saturday's game. Said Joel's playing well, the puck's just not going in for him. Fair. That said, he's a scorer. Like, honestly, like, the puck kind of has to go in for him to be valuable. Like, the ship, I think, has sailed for Joel Farabee to be this dominant two-way player in the vein of Justin Williams, like we thought he might be 3-4 years ago. If he's going to be valuable, he's got to score points. 2 goals and 6 points in 13 games, that's not enough. Morgan Frost, he cannot every year start out this slow if he wants to be a contributing player on a consistent contender. And I like Morgan Frost's skill level a lot. I like him a lot as a player. I like him a lot as a person. I think he's a hardworking guy whose heart's in the right place. But he can't be bad for the first 2 months of every season if he wants to have a place on this team long term. He just can't.
No, and it just seems like this stagnation, those two players specifically, like, honestly, Bobby Brink, like,
we don't know what he is yet.
Yeah, like, that's my thing is his ceiling is sheltered third liner who helps your power play. Like, he can do some things for you. He's never going to be a 20-minute all situations guy. He is a role player. His role is create some offense with some good matchups. Like,
and he has a longer runway to get there.
Yeah.
This is just his second year, and he didn't even really play the full year last year. Like, I'm not ready to say with certainty what Bobby Brink is. Just like I'm not ready to say with certainty like what Tyson Forrester is going to be. They're still young. But guys like Farabee and Frost, like, they're in their mid-20s. This is supposed to be the time.
They've been here forever. Like, we're looking at these guys, like Joel Farabee, that was a Ron Hextall pick, wasn't it?
Yeah,
like
last one.
That's a long time ago. Morgan Frost, Charlie, Kelly and I talked about it last night. That 2017 draft, it was a long freaking time ago. Like, guys are on superstar contracts who came out of that draft now. Like, you're in your prime, dude. If this is all you are, like, it's over. You're never going to be anything more than you are right now. And I'm worried about those two specifically.
I'm not ready to say that this is who they are. Like, again, I will reiterate, it's only 13 games in. If Joel Farabee has a big November or a big December, suddenly we're like, hey, he's having a pretty good year. Same with Morgan Frost to a degree, although I think Frost is a little bit different because the early season struggles have been a recurring theme for him. So I'm a little bit hesitant to cut him all the slack in the world if he gets hot in January, just because he always gets hot in January. It's like, you got to be better in the beginning of the year, man. But, like, it is early. I'm not ready to write any of these guys off. I think these guys are talented. I think these guys can be better. But when all of the guys in a certain age range are struggling at the same time, it's hard not to start wondering if there's something else going on here beyond just, well, they just happen to be all in slumps. Like, I don't know. Is the message not getting through to them? Like, I don't know.
And that's, like, when we say it's early, like, it gets early late in this league. Yeah, you can always turn it around, and there's like, the Blues are the classic example. Came into the Wells Fargo Center in like January in last place, and then they go on to win the cup. So like, it's not the most impossible thing in the world.
But it's real hard.
But it's really, really hard.
It's really hard.
And the thing about the theory behind the way they're doing this rebuild is we're going to play these meaningful games in February, March, maybe even April. They went all the way to game 82 last year. Meaningful games late in the season. If you have these early struggles like Morgan Frost has had, like Joel Farabee is now having, like your hot streak in January is not going to mean a damn thing when you're 30 points out. Yeah. Like that's it, okay. Sure. You're eliminated. It's pointless. I don't care. These are games that are just on the schedule and you're only playing them because that's the rule. Like if you don't show up early, this whole meaningful game thing, there aren't any meaningful games. And so I'm not really evaluating you on what you do on a Tuesday in February when like there's 12,000 people in the seats because you pissed away the season.
Yeah. I mean, I don't go as far as you. Like I do believe that you can still glean a lot from, full season data sets and whatnot, but I understand where you're coming from. And I think the interesting part about it, Bill, is that I think the Flyers decision makers are more on your side than mine, which leads you to ask the question of, okay, well, if Danny Briere and Keith Jones think you learn more about, and John Tortorella for that matter, if they think you learn more about players when the games are meaningful, and the games stop being meaningful in January, and this is supposed to be a fact-finding year, how much are they actually going to be learning about these guys? Like for me, I would look at it as if the games still matter, players are still playing for pride, and you can glean things from, quote unquote, meaningless games. But I do think that the Flyers' brain trust is more in your corner than they are in mine, which makes you wonder if this thing really continues to go off the rails and by the end of December, early January, they are functionally out of a playoff spot.
Well,
what will they think they're learning about these guys at that point? I don't know.
We all silly like the mayor.